Hello everybody. In this video we are going to be making our soft jaw blanks. Our next project, we need to make a crank, and to be able to do our second operation for that we need to be using a soft jaws. We've used soft jaws in the last one when we were making the connecting rod, and now we are going to go through actually making a soft jaw. It's going to be very useful to have a blank modeled up so that if you have to make soft jaws in the future, you just grab a couple of your blanks, throw them in assembly, and start machining out the soft jaws that you need that fit our vices. So we have a 5-inch vise in our shop, so we'll see that our soft jaws are going to extend out past our soft jaws, or our vise, just a little bit. We may have some new things on here that you haven't seen a whole lot before, and we have our datum points right here. And we have covered this briefly, but now we're actually going to see what this looks like in application. So when we go through our GD&T, or geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, we have our 3 datums. And what they allow us to do is they show us exactly how that part needs to be machined. Now, something like this, we could do a whole bunch of different machining strategies if we wanted to. Just looking at this one way, what we could do is we could have this down in our vise first on the parallels. We could drill this all the way through. We could flip it over and do this in a second op and face it. But in here, our A datum right there is going to be your plane. So our planar dimensions and everything like that are going to be coming off of this bottom surface right here, meaning that when we load this up in our mill, this plane right here needs to be flat, and everything is going to be coming off of there. So this needs to be on our parallels. The second thing that we need to do is we have our B datum right there, which is going to be that line. And what happens with this is this would technically be like our bottom, and that needs to be on our fixed jaw. And you notice that everything vertically is coming off of here, meaning that this is our critical dimension right there. Finally, we have our C datum, which is going to be the center line of our part. So when we do this, when we measure this up, we are going to be measuring this in relation to the center line of this, meaning that from our center line, these 2 holes need to be 3.129 inches apart from each other. If this were a little bit longer, quite honestly, it doesn't really matter. What really matters with this is that these holes are exactly 0.156 from the center, and between these 2 is 3.129, so that when we put this into an assembly, i.e. Putting this into the jaws of our vise, everything will line up perfectly and everything will be within our tolerances. So let's go to Fusion. Well, before we go to Fusion, let's quick take a look. I'm going to start out by making just a rectangle right here. That's the size of our jaws, and then I will make a sketch for these holes right here, make a center line, mirror it over. So we take a look on the side here. We need a rectangle that's 5.165 wide and 1 3/4 or 1.75 tall. So we'll go over to Fusion 360. Before we get started, we want to make sure that we are in our proper folder. So I've got my CNC manufacturing. I'm going to save this as 03 soft jaw blank. So we'll save that, and it should pop up there. The reason that we are not going to call this our crank soft jaw blank is we want to have the opportunity to be able to reuse this. So we'll call that the soft jaw blank. Now we're going to create our sketch, and make sure, just like always, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are on our X and Y plane for our first sketch. And again, like before, we want to go into bottom or down and to the right from our origin. So 2-point rectangle, down and to the right. My width for this, again, is 5.165. I'll hit tab on the keyboard to go to my vertical dimension, and that one is 1 3/4 or 1.75. So there we have our rectangle. We'll go back to the print. This is 3/4 of an inch thick, so we'll extrude that to 3/4 of an inch. We'll finish that sketch, extrude, but we're going to go down, -0.75. Again, the reason that we do it that way is that is our origin, so we bring this into our cam. Everything just lines up real nice. Next thing is we want to create a sketch, and we are going to go on this top face of this sketch right here. We'll go to our print, and we start off by needing to make this center line. And from there, we're going to be making two holes that are going to be 0.49 or 49 or 490 thou apart from each other, or that are going to be over here, and our centers are going to be at those dimensions right there. So we'll walk through this together. Go back to Fusion. We've got our sketch right there. I'm going to create a line that's going to be our center line. So this line we aren't going to be using for extruding or anything like that. We're going to change a line type to a construction line, and we are going to drag it along this top surface until we see that triangle. And that means that we are at that center point of that line. So we click there and we drag down, and now we've got the center line of this rectangle, or our soft jaw. So I've got my center diameter circles. I'm going to make two of them at 0.49. Now I forgot to turn off my line type, so I'm just going to come over here and change it to a standard object line from our construction line. And the diameter of this, again, is 0.49, so I'll type that in there. We don't need to worry about doing anything with that yet. We'll put in another circle at 0.49, just like that. And now, what we need to do is we need to start worrying about our dimensions. So from here to our circle is going to be 1.56. So it lines up properly with the print. I'll drag these over here, and I'm going to put in a dimension from that construction line at 1.56, and another one from that center line, or from that center point to my center line, my construction line, at 1.56. Go back to the print. The next thing, both of them, we are going to dimension off of this bottom line right here. We're going to go 0.798 up to our first point right there, and then to the second point is going to be 0.952. So I make sure my sketch dimension is selected, go from this bottom line to the bottom center point. That is 0.798. And then the same thing for this top one. This one is 0.952. So you'll notice that these overlap a bit. The next thing that we want to do is we want to join these two circles. So what I will do is I will create two lines. One right there. Press L on the keyboard for a little shortcut for our line. And we have our two lines that are vertical. We will make these tangent to our circles. And then what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll trim away anything that we need to. Now if we trim something away, we may accidentally trim away constraint. We always want to make sure that our sketches are fully constrained so that they are black. If you see any blue parts of your sketch, you want to make sure that you find which constraint that you're missing and make sure that we lock that down. The reason being is we don't want this sketch to accidentally move. If any of these lines were that light blue, I'd be able to drag and pull this around. We don't want that to happen at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is we'll draw this second hole right there, and that is the exact same way that we drew these first ones, except it is at 0.695. So we'll go back to Fusion, and I have two circles coming off of this center point. That first one is going to be 0.695. And then we also have our second one just below that at 0.695. And just like before, we're going to make two vertical lines. Now, you can snap it to there, but I find sometimes that tangent constraint doesn't always like to pop up in Fusion. So we'll just make two vertical lines, and we'll make sure that they are tangent, and then we can rest assured that everything is constrained properly.